Can you hear me? Is this thing on? Oh, hiya, B-Man. Harley Quinn here. How do you like my new uniform? Pretty hot, huh? Oh, I got something to show you. 1 second, B-Man. Ta-da!
Oh, fuck. I can't believe you've done this.
Sir? Right. Let's thaw him out.
Okay then.
Okay. Bringing low-level systems online. Cracking the case in 30 seconds.
Yeah, just gonna do a quick little. Let's turn that down. Actually, it's funny to me how like they've been talking about making a remake of Combat Evolved for a while now, and it's taken them so long to do it with the whole rebrand to Halo Studios and all that bullshit. It's still 3.3. I don't care what they say. It's not gonna make much of a difference just changing the name, is it? But yeah, one thing that I find kind of funny is I wasn't thinking of making a video on this because I don't normally talk about Halo in videos like this, and let's be honest, even if I were to, there are other channels out there that focus on Halo purely, whereby they would probably have a lot more valid things to say. I'm not really sure whether what I have to say is valid, but I feel like I have to weigh in on this because I feel like there's a what's it called? There's merit to both sides of the divide, but I know I'm going to piss off a lot of people by saying this, but at the end of the day, that's just the way I see it, and I have a very different take on what they're doing with Campaign Evolved, are they calling it, compared to what they did originally. And yeah, I have a very different take to that than what most people have, personally. I don't know, I would say, for me, when it comes to some games, I guess I can be a bit passionate about the games I enjoy the most. And for some games, yeah, when it comes to things like this, obviously I'd probably be more on the side of the people who are hating on it because it's not like the OG. Like, let's be honest, when it comes to the Arkham, the Return to Arkham games, don't play the remasters, play the originals. The remasters are absolutely fucking crap. The only reason why I would ever justify playing the remasters is if it's the only way you can possibly play it. But if you have a PC or an older system or a way of playing the original versions, just play the original versions. And hell, if you have a PC, not only can you buy the original versions on Steam and GOG, so you have options, but you can also use mods to remaster the game in a way that's far more faithful to what the originals basically were trying to get at, so you can just use that instead. Not trying to plug GP Unity here, but like their remaster for both Asylum and City are really good, and I haven't really tried the other ones yet, but I'm sure they're pretty good too. And it's the same with Assassin's Creed. I'm sorry, but the Ezio trilogy, fuck off. Play the original. But when it comes to this, I don't know. I mean, I feel like I need to address Combat Evolved Anniversary first, because this just seems like another repeat of that. Now, yes, I do think it's kind of stupid that they're remastering the same game again, even though, yes, the argument that it's not a remaster, it's a remake, is true. Yes, it's not a remaster, it's a remake, so fair. But, like, the gripe I have with it is more, why are they remaking this game after they only remastered it about a decade prior? And even then, they remastered this game, they remastered Halo 2, they did not do it to Halo 3, they did not complete the trilogy before deciding they were going to remake the games. Why didn't they focus on remastering the trilogy first? Because I know people didn't like Combat Evolved Anniversary, but again, I have my own particular view on whether that game is good or bad, and to me, I can see why some people loved it and some people hate it. I take more of a middle ground. I guess that's probably down to the fact that me, personally, I never grew up playing these games. Newsflash to anyone who doesn't know, my first Halo game was Halo Reach, when I first bought a 360, when I first bought a proper console. I grew up on handhelds, mostly Nintendo, Game Boys and DS based consoles. I hadn't really played anything until Reach came out and I got my 360 for the first time. And so I never grew up playing Halo. I never experienced the original Combat Evolved until a little while later. In fact, I experienced Anniversary first, although I never really completed any of them until recently because I don't know, I just couldn't. I wasn't really into first-person shooters. I'm still not that much into first-person shooters, truth be told, but I like Halo for what it was. I'm not a huge fan of what it's becoming, or what it's become, let's be honest. I mean, I tuned out after Halo 4. That was the first game I ever completed in the series, and the only game I was ever truly disappointed with. When I went back and played the others, I enjoyed those a lot more. And I can see why people would be upset that they are not really doing it justice when remaking or remastering Combat Evolved. Because, again, I mean, I can see how, to many people, the second game in the Arkham series is the better game. So that's the game you more likely want to be more passionate about. But to me, I'm the type of guy who actually prefers the first game in the Arkham series. Asylum is my baby. Asylum is the game that I love to death, and personally, I have more of a gripe with the remaster of Arkham Asylum than I do with the remaster of Arkham City. I still think both of them are shit, but yeah, I think Asylum is the one that I'm more passionate about. Whereas when it comes to Halo, I know this is probably going to piss a lot of Halo fans off, but I'm sorry. My favourite, when I went back and played them all, my favourite Halo game is still Reach. I love that game to death, but my favourite Master Chief game, and it is a very close second to Reach because it's almost on par with it in my opinion, despite the flaws. My favourite Master Chief game is Halo 2, followed closely by Halo 3. Halo Combat Evolved is not even in my top 3. Halo Combat Evolved is more like third in the Master Chief series and fourth in total, as Reach is still my favourite above all. But obviously I still prefer Combat Evolved over ODST, so I guess it's still not the worst game in the Bungie series, but even then, I say that lightly because even ODST is a pretty damn good game, so that goes to show how good the Bungie series is, when even the worst game in the series is a must-play when compared to anything 343 have put out, which just isn't even close. Halo 4, or anything that came after, doesn't come close to even the worst two games in the series, in my opinion, which, yes, I'm gonna say it, I didn't like Combat Evolved as much as Halo 2 and Halo 3. I didn't like ODST as much as Combat Evolved. I didn't like any of them as much as Reach, but that's just me. That's the game that I enjoyed the most, because I feel like they refined the formula in Halo 3 and Halo Reach so well, but there's just something about Halo 2's campaign and being able to play both sides of the divide and how metal that campaign is that I absolutely fucking love. So those games have a special place in my heart. Combat Evolved, the reason why I don't love the game is as follows. Truth be told, I want to love the game because the first half of the campaign is probably the best missions in the series. If we were just rating the first half of the campaign, then Combat Evolved, in my opinion, would be better than Halo 2, 3, and Reach. But we can't rate an entire game just because it has a good start. The start of the campaign is gold, up until 343 Guilty Spark, which is where it peaked. But then it drops off hard, and the rest of the campaign feels like it's very last minute. You can tell that they were on a crunch with that game, and that they had so many ideas and had to scrap half of them last minute and come up with the last half of the campaign on the fly. Because it shows that it's just not... The last half of the campaign does not compare to the first half of the campaign and brings Halo Combat Evolved down tenfold. Now, does it ruin the game outright? No, it's still a really fun game, and I would definitely say it's a must-play for any Halo fan. Again, I would say that for every Bungie game, including ODST. I think the thing that sucks the most about ODST is it's the one and only game centered around the ODSTs, and I feel like they could have done a better job with it. They could have hammered home what it feels like to be an ODST a lot more, instead of just having the gameplay feel like Halo 3, but you're cosplaying as an ODST, you know? It just feels like there's a bit of a disconnect there. Otherwise, it's a really good game. Reach is a far better game, in my opinion, but again, it sucks that we've only got one game that focuses on being a Spartan outside of the Chief that isn't a Halo Wars title, and that's just criminal, because Master Chief's story ended in Halo 3. I know, again, coming from someone who didn't grow up playing the series, that's weird to hear, but I gotta agree with them. Master Chief's story ended in Halo 3. Halo 4 was not worthy of digging up that skeleton, so they should have just left Master Chief where he was and made their own stories within the universe with new characters. Like, they carried on the Spartan program in Halo 4 anyway, so they have every opportunity to do so. Plus, if they wanted to, they could go further back before the fall of Reach and tell the stories, because it's not like the war started on Reach. That was just when the war reached its I wouldn't even say its climax. That's when it reached its crescendo, I suppose, where then it was like all or nothing. Humanity only had one option. They either go straight into the storm, face it head on, and try to finish it before it's too late, or nothing. That's it. It's over. They've lost. So really, Reach, and basically the entire series of Halo, takes place pretty much at the tail end of the Human Covenant War. And it all takes place within a matter of weeks, surprisingly. Even though I'm surprised about that, but yeah, it all takes place within a matter of weeks, from Halo Combat Evolved all the way to 3 weeks. Reach, of course, if you add that to the equation, makes it take a little longer, because we've also got to factor in the time it takes to travel from destinations, because although in the games it makes it makes being able to warp and use slip space out to be an instantaneous mode of travel when it really isn't. It does still take time, because you can only travel about the speed of light, and even the speed of light won't get you across the entire galaxy within a matter of moments. Sadly, that's just not the facts. So yeah, but still, it's a cool concept, and I think that it's cool to think that it takes place over such a short span of time, even with those extra days where they would have taken out when they were in cryosleep. But with that in mind, 343 could have easily gone back and done stories before then, like they're doing with Halo Wars. Instead, Halo Wars kind of feels like it's focused on that, and we've only got 2 of those, and everything else is just them digging up the past with Master Chief and just not having the guts to do anything new and interesting with the franchise. And now they've gone full circle. Not only did they originally start trying to remaster the older games to bring them into their idea of what these games should have looked like, I suppose, and then give up halfway through because clearly they didn't know what they were doing, despite the fact that, in my opinion, I think they learned their lesson quite well in Halo 2, because I'm gonna say it, I don't think Combat Evolved Anniversary was as bad as people say it is, personally. I know I can see why diehard fans say that, because it's not the same. They did butcher it, but at the same time, there are elements, there are points in the game where it does look good. You know, it's not an improvement, but it is a worthy successor. But when it comes to certain aspects of it, the bads sadly do outweigh the good. Like, in my opinion, not like when it comes to this mission here, I do think some aspects of this do look good, but it is just a bit over-designed. It's a bit too busy. It could be simplified, you know? It's not quite... It definitely adds more detail to what was there, which I like, but it's too much detail. They could have reined it in a bit, because it's just a bit much, you know? And using the Reach asset is kind of a double-edged sword, because I like Reach, it's my favourite game, but in a way, I don't think they made it suit the overall art style of this game. Instead, they tried to make this game suit the Reach art style, and it just doesn't work. The shading and lighting just makes everything look plasticky and weird. Like, the Marines look like toy soldiers, and I don't particularly like that, but anyway. But then, when it comes to things like the beach on the Silent Cartographer, yeah, personally, I think that mission, other than the Forerunner textures, again, being a bit busy, that mission is probably one of the most gorgeous missions in the campaign, even on Anniversary graphics. In fact, I would actually say I almost slightly prefer it on Anniversary graphics if it wasn't for the Forerunner textures letting it down. But when it gets to the midpoint of the campaign, that's when, yeah, I gotta agree with the OG fans. It's unforgivable. What did they do to 343 Guilty Spark? And it was bad enough to sit through the library before, when it was just a bad mission, but now that I have to look at all these... Now it's just hard to look at it because of all those terrible Forerunner textures. I definitely don't want to play it now. I didn't want to play it before, now I definitely don't, because those textures are just sickening. But 343 Guilty Spark, the best mission in the entire campaign was supposed to be foreboding. It was supposed to be dark, it was supposed to be edgy, it was supposed to make you feel a sense of dread. And in the Anniversary graphics, it doesn't do that. It's just too bright. It's too pretty. In fact, let's see if I can, God damn. That's quite a... I mean, even when it comes to bits like this, I know some people don't like them because it doesn't really suit the art style of the original, but here's a hot take that I'm gonna go into a bit more when I actually start talking about the newer version. I don't actually think the original graphics would work. In my opinion, well, it's not the graphics. If you were trying to make a remaster, a faithful remaster, to capture the art style and overall energy that the original had, I'm sorry, but going in the way that most modern games are going, you wouldn't be able to do it. If they maybe went down a cell shade, more comic-y route, it would work. But to try and go for, like, realism, like what the modern Halo franchise seems to be going for, I'm sorry, but I don't see it working. That's in one way why I can see that people who maybe haven't played the original games are kind of like, why is the fan base constantly shitting on this company for remastering the game and not making it suit the original when it's a new version of the game? It's not going to look like the original because the original came out in 2001. But they're right in that sense, because it's not going to look like the original. I'm sorry, but if you're trying to bring it into the modern day, you cannot make the original art style for Halo look good in modern graphics. It's just going to look weird. I'm sorry. It's the truth. If you were to hammer home the art style a bit more, then, if anything, you'd have to almost say, fuck the modern day, I want to stylize this game more. I guess they could remaster it by going all out on the stylization of the game. But if they're not willing to go all out on the stylization of the game, then I'm sorry, but it's just not gonna work. They have to almost reinvent the game in order for it to be translatable into these realistic visuals. And in my opinion, this particular, like, again, it's still a bit over-designed in areas, but this is probably where I can actually forgive it, personally, when you're on the Covenant cruisers and ships and whatnot, because I actually like the look of the interiors and stuff here. There's areas where it still feels a bit much, but I think overall it's nice, you know? But when it gets to, like, as I said, when it gets to certain parts, like the Forerunner textures are too much, that Elite just looks fucking weird. The colour grading can be a bit off at times. I do like the look of that room, though. But yeah, the beach looks nice. Personally, I actually like the beach in Combat Evolved Anniversary. I just think that all this is just too much. It's a bit busy, you know? Like, they could have toned it down a bit. And when we get to... Where the fuck? It's not even showing me the thing now. I wanna... yeah, this looks good, but again, it could be a bit darker, I suppose. But there's still elements of it that I would definitely improve, and again, since a lot of it takes place within these weird-ass Forerunner textures, I feel like they could have toned it down just a bit. And then, come on, let's see 343 Guilty Spark, goddammit. I want to see 343 Guilty Spark. I want to... Yeah, I like the scanline effects that they got going on in the videos as well, but again, like, textures are a bit weird. What the fuck's going on here? Where's 343 Guilty Spark? Yeah, there we go. Just look at this for a moment. It looks good, but the problem is, it looks too good. This is supposed to be the most creepiest mission in the game. But this looks like Pandora from fucking James Cameron's Avatar. There's nothing creepy about that. It's too beautiful. And, like, I know the whole point of a remaster is to make a game look shinier and new, but I think they take the whole idea of making it look shiny and new a bit too seriously, and that undermines the aura, the intent that this mission had. It wasn't supposed to look so colourful and bright. This is supposed to be dark. In a way, I think in this case, I would say the original is definitely better, simply because the fog wasn't just... Yeah, you could say it was mostly there to hide the graphical fidelity because of how poor the fidelity was at the time, but that ended up being not just a restraint, but, well, an actual part of the game's identity, and in a form of intent which made the mission more creepy. And I would say the mission without that layer of fog, without that dim lit creepiness, it just doesn't work anymore. This just completely loses the aura, the feel of what this entire mission was about. I don't feel scared watching this. I don't feel scared playing this. I'm just in awe of the beauty, but that completely misses the point. And in that regard, yes, I gotta say, I'm on the side of the OG Puritans here. This is a fucking crime. It's a crime. Why did you do this, 343? Why the fuck did you do this? And then there's also the fact that when switching between graphics, which is a cool feature, I love the anniversary game for that, I gotta admit, I don't like the fact that switching between graphics, there are certain artifacts that are broken in this port of the game when switching to classic graphics, so it makes the game look flatter than it already is, which, yes, makes the remaster look better by comparison, because even the original graphics aren't really being shown in a way that's authentic to how they would have actually looked playing the OG version. So I'm glad I did eventually manage to find the original Xbox version of Combat Evolved, and I gotta say, I love that version all the more for it, because it feels like a moment in time, and I kind of in a way don't want them to remake this game or remaster it. I kind of wish they'd learned from this, and instead of trying to remake the game and bring it into the modern day, just leave it where it is, because you're not going to get better than where it was. Combat Evolved is a moment in time, and really, to remake that, by definition, would kind of ruin the point. You're not going to be able to do this justice. And if you are going to do it justice, then you are going to have to change a few things. And it is going to be controversial. But at the end of the day, it could still be better than this. And yes, I do agree, it could still be better than what I'm seeing in the remaster. Because I'm going to switch perspectives here. Even with this, now this is where I get to talking about the remaster and how this version looks. I gotta say, it does look good. I actually prefer it over the anniversary edition, hands down. But again, the pop-in, like, that's probably just because it's a unfinished build. But then again, I don't think that's the case. I think it's because it's made in Unreal Engine 5. And we all know what Unreal Engine 5 is like. It's a buggy mess that can barely function while using the bare minimum tools that software basically pioneered. So it's all well and good that it has the ability to make a game, to make visuals that look this good, and simulated water physics and foliage and stuff that looks super realistic, but at the cost of it not being a fully perfected, fully functioning engine that doesn't run properly half the time, and therefore causes issues, which makes it so that the majority of games that are brought out are poorly optimized and just don't run. And when they say, oh, just get the higher specs because the recommended spec is blah blah blah, even the people who have those recommended specs can barely get these games to run at a stable frame rate. So it's not even a spec issue, it's the engine. The engine is flawed. This is why, personally, if I were to make a game, I'd go back to Unreal Engine 4. You could say, yeah, you don't have all this realistic shit in Unreal Engine 4, but again, I remind you, Batman Arkham Knight, I think, was made in Unreal Engine 4. That game still holds up today. That game still beats most AAA games to this day. So I'm sorry, but maybe that's also down to the fact that it's not just good in terms of realistic, crispy visuals, but it also still has an art style. The problem is with these modern games is, yeah, in order to achieve this level of realism, they kind of have to abandon an art style. Like, you can still have a visual style, I suppose, but it would be more like... it'd be less of an art style and more of a filmography style, you know? Kind of like how the Batman stands apart from most visual live-action Batman movies, because it's not really an art style that they're going for, but more visual style for the filming techniques, the cinematography, and how the world is put together in terms of colour grading and a bunch of other technical shit, which at this point I don't even know how to name it, because it's been a long time since I've actually sat down and analysed that film, and to be honest, I'm going to have to brush up on my my film analytic lingo. But basically, that film stands apart because they did go well into the cinematic style of the movie. In regards to the cinematography, they chose a specific camera with a specific lens. They chose to film in a specific way, using specific types of editing and filming techniques, and as a result, the film has a look which kind of almost brings us a modern look almost personifies a modern version of the noir crime thriller film vibe. It feels both old and like a classic, while at the same time feeling new and original, and breathing new life into the genre, which is why personally, I love that film. Even if some people would say it's not the best Batman film, well, I guess that's subjective, because me personally, I'm a fan of Batman less as a superhero and more as a detective, so I love that film because it feels like they finally take the detective side, the noir side of Batman, serious by giving us a crime thriller rather than a superhero movie, which is why I love that movie, and I actually prefer it over anything that's come out before, even if I still have a soft spot for the old Michael Keaton films, and the first two at least, Christian Bale films, especially the first one, because I've actually, over the course of time, whereas I used to love The Dark Knight more, over the course of time I've grown to love the original, the first film, Batman Begins, more, because, let's face it, that's a better film for Batman characteristically speaking, because in the later films he just became a background character within his own story. He was just reacting to what was going on rather than actually learning and growing from it, unlike the first film, which had all the character development for him, even though it was a lot slower and does require a lot more patience on the viewer part. But not only that, the direction for that film in terms of visuals was a lot more grounded in terms of what Gotham in this universe should look like. In The Dark Knight onwards, it just looked like Metropolis. It didn't look like Gotham anymore, and that kind of didn't work for me. Whereas the Batman, again, has managed to find a visual style that both feels somewhat realistic while still having a grounded but unique style for Gotham that feels both like a good blend between comic accuracy and reality, you know? I like it. It does feel otherworldly, but at the same time it feels like it's just down the road from me. I could go there if I wanted to. Like, I could see pretty much places very similar to that in real life, you know? So, I love that interpretation, and I love how, again, Gotham feels less like a setting in this film and more like, well, like it is its own character. But enough about the Batman, we're here to talk about Halo. In regards to this, on one hand, I was kind of looking forward to them remaking Halo Combat Evolved Halo Combat Evolved, because the anniversary version, again, didn't really do it justice. But, on the other hand, I was kind of thinking, with them doing it in Unreal Engine 5, that's a double-edged sword. It can either be really, really good or really, really bad. From what I'm seeing, I can see why there are a ton of people, especially OG fans, who don't like this. But I can also see why people who don't know that much about it, are maybe looking at this and thinking, this looks gorgeous. Why are you people hating on this? This is probably the most toxic community out there, because all they want to do is hate on new stuff that is being brought out. They're stuck in the past. But at the same time, no, they kind of are, but they kind of not. Yes, there are people who just don't like the direction that they're taking and don't want to see them deviate from what was. And to them, all I have to say is, well, if that's the case, why are you even looking forward to a remaster or remake or any rehash in the first place, when if they can't make anything new within the Halo space that's actually worth playing, then we've already got the original Combat Evolved. Just play that, because that's where Halo Combat Evolved especially is at its best, in the original installment. If you want to play Combat Evolved as it was intended, play the original, flaws and all, because the flaws define it as much as everything else about that product, and this does sterilize it. Same with the anniversary edition, it sterilizes it, and you will lose that character by default, because you're not going to be able to mimic that if you're trying to bring it into the modern age. It's just not going to work. But at the same time, I can agree with those people who maybe aren't disliking it because it's not the original, but do just wish they did better, because yes, there is problems here. As I said, because of the engine, you do have pop-in. This does look gorgeous, and I do like the simulation, and there's a lot to love here, so I don't hate it as much as most people do, because I can see there is a lot to love. But there is also plenty of which I can say they took the safe route. They didn't try to do anything unique and interesting here. They didn't try to maybe take what they had in the original and readapt it into the modern day while keeping the soul of it. Instead, they stripped the soul away and just gave us a game that yeah, let's be honest, looks like every other Unreal Engine 5 game. That's the problem with this. They did, in a way, have to strip away that art style to make it look this good, because it wouldn't work with that art style and these visuals. But at the same time, I feel like they stripped it back too much, and as a result, this just looks like any Unreal Engine 5 game, but with a Halo skin thrown over it. So, I'm kind of on the fence about this myself. Plus, as much as I like the cinematics, and in a way, I kind of wish we had cinematics like this for the anniversary version, like we had for Halo 2 Anniversary, because as I was saying about Halo 2 Anniversary, in my opinion, Halo Combat Evolved Anniversary missed the point. Yes, we've established that. Whether you love it or hate it, it's not a terrible remake. I've seen worse, but clearly it doesn't feel like an improvement. I still think if you want a better version of the game, play the original. But Halo 2 Anniversary, on the other hand, does feel like a slight improvement. It doesn't feel like it does anything majorly groundbreaking, in a way, although the visuals are insanely good, especially for the blur cutscenes. And there are some points where I can say the original, I still prefer it art style-wise, because they've gone a bit overboard here in some areas. But it's definitely a massive improvement over Halo Combat Evolved Anniversary. I mean, Halo 2 Anniversary and Halo Combat Evolved Anniversary, night and day. One was clearly them tripping over themselves, learning the hard way what not to do. And the other was them listening to that and making a product that generally does feel like an actual remake or remaster should. So in a way, I do like that they are now giving us blur cutscene style visuals instead of having the in-game thing, because it worked well for Halo 2 Anniversary. I think it's going to work here. But at the same time, I feel like they could have cut away from this a lot sooner and put us in the head of Master Chief a lot sooner than it did, instead of giving us that shot of Foehammer, which we're going to see soon, because in a way, it feels too cinematic. It feels like the idea of being inside the head of the Spartan, of Master Chief, at this point, just being a self-insert character that gets developed in later games into his own character, has been stripped away also here, by giving us too much in the way of cinematography. I like the build-up here, but when we get to the island and we start seeing all the shooting, I would like to actually be able to, I don't know, control the character again, like in the original, and see what's going on with the dialogue happening in the background as we're landing, instead of it still being a cinematic until the Pelican lands. Like, that kind of defeats the purpose. And again, back to Anniversary 1 and 2, it does suck that they're doing this when they didn't even see the Anniversary collection through. And again, I wasn't expecting them to make an anniversary of the entire Bungie saga. I was just expecting them to do the Master Chief games, you know? Halo 1, 2, and 3. And they didn't even do that. They learned a lot of good lessons in Halo 2. So I was curious as to see whether they would end up using that knowledge, what worked in the one game and what didn't work in the other, to make a better product for Halo 3 Anniversary, or whether they would actually just miss the point entirely and end up just repeating themselves like they did with Combat Evolved Anniversary, basically giving us another game that makes us think, come on, mate. But the problem is, we never really got the chance to see that. Instead, we've got another bloody rehash of the first game, when you've still got people talking about Anniversary. And, again, let's just let this play out for a moment. See, this is all nice. I like what they've got going on here. The cinematography is nice. I do like the pop-in, again, on the water reflections is a bit silly. That I don't mind, because it's not like he's saying anything. But it is a bit confusing seeing that, because you assume that that's what's being shot down, when no, it's this one. But around about by here... Yeah, around about by there, instead of cutting to showing her face, just so that they can show how good the facial animations are, you can do that with later scenes. Why did they have to have this here? By the time the Pelican got to this point, it should have cut from this to POV in Chief's head as she's saying this and landing, and then, you know, she's saying this, you've got the POV of Chief's head, and then you have the hood appear as it's landing, so you have a bit more of a time to scope the place out just before it lands, instead of it just landing and you're already in the thick of it, because it's not like the cinematic visuals and the in-game visuals are that different anymore, because unlike Halo 2 Anniversary, where they had the blur cutscenes and they just had to make the game look as good as possible, and it was still vastly different, the game itself didn't look anywhere near as good as the blur cutscenes, but it still looked good enough for us to not break the immersion going from the cutscenes to the game, you know? It still was a good balance. But this, obviously, other than the fact that it does look a bit fuzzy because this is like pre-alpha footage, I suppose, this does look closer to how the cutscenes looked because it is still in-engine for the most part, because they can do that now. So, having it cut from that to this sooner while she's talking wouldn't have broken the immersion for me. It would have just made the game feel like it's at least trying to give us a more cinematic edge while not stripping too far away from the initial intent of putting you in the head of Chief. Instead, this feels like they've gone so much down the cinematography route that you don't really feel like you're in the head of the character until you're in gameplay, and at that point, it just defeats the purpose. Like, this is more like Halo 2 than Halo Combat Evolved. Like, the entire aura has shifted, and personally, I don't like that. Also, yeah, I don't like this HUD. I don't know why everything's like this. Like, what the fuck? You should be down there. You should be up there, and you should be up there. And although I do like the Halo Reach style health bar with shields with the health bar in the middle, again, this is 2 Halo 5. What's with all the ridges and the fucking... Why does it look like the Halo 5 one? What the fuck even is this? I don't like this at all. You could have just had a simplified sort of Halo 3 style bar with like a little notch on the bottom, and then like a faint sort of hue like they did in Halo Infinite to show the difference between the health bar, the shield and the health bar. And again, another thing, I don't mind some of these extra parts on the helmet, but some of it is a bit too much. Like, what's going on here? Like, I guess that's supposed to be like the cheek part of the helmet, the part that you can see, and they've used like VR, I suppose, in the headset to kind of make that see-through. And I don't mind that, but at the same time, I don't know what to feel about it. It's a bit... But anyway, that's enough of that. For the most part, this does look pretty nice. But what the hell is with that? Look at this bullshit. I'm just gonna have to... I don't know if I can get the exact frame. Yeah, look at that. Hit markers. Why on earth has this game got hit markers? Like, I'm sorry, but again, this is another thing I agree with the OG fan base who are up in arms about this. I may not have grown up with this game, but even I admit, the way they did the effects in the original was way better, because it was more, you could see the shields kind of cracking up as you shot them, and they burst just before the enemy is basically one shot away from death. Depending on the weapon, that burst may even be their death, because of course, if you're using a powerful enough weapon, then you'll cut through the shields and kill them in one shot. But of course, if you're not using a powerful enough weapon, then you might get the shield bursting before they go down, but you still get that feedback from the blood splatter or something. You don't need this hit mark. Instead, they got rid of the shield effects. They still have the blood, but they got rid of the shield effects and put this there. Why? This is lazy. No one wants this. This breaks the immersion. This is fine in multiplayer. But in the campaign, the shield effects and all those little effects that were used to give that indication weren't just there for the sake of being minimal. They were there for the sake of immersion. They were there for the sake of making this feel real and like you were actually there and not feeling like a fucking video game. This is too arcadey, even for an arcade game like Halo Combat Evolved. Especially when the whole point of this is to bring it into the modern age and make it look less arcadey and more cinematic, and then they go and bring shit in like this, which completely defeats the purpose of that. I think the original way they did the death feedback from killing enemies was way more cinematic in a game that was way more arcadey than what they're going for here. It's just like, it's arse backwards. It makes no sense. It should be the other way around. Why the fuck are you doing this, 343? Or, again, Halo Studios, I don't care. You're still the same studio. Rename doesn't change anything. You're still 343, just with a different name. But again, I do think these visuals are nicer. This isn't, the Forerunner architecture isn't quite as busy, and I appreciate that. But it still just looks a bit too sterile, you know? Like, in a way, it looks like it's been taken from Halo 2 Anniversary and slapped here, which I like, because I do like the look of Halo 2 Anniversary. But, I don't know, there's something about it. Otherwise, everything else looks nice. The skybox looks gorgeous, in my opinion. I don't like the effects for the shield things. They just look a bit too tangible. Again, why is it that 343 since Halo 4 have not been able to make holograms look like holograms. The shields look more like holograms in Halo 4 actually than they do here, but Cortana looks like a real person in body paint. She doesn't look like a hologram. The older games made her look like a hologram, but 343 does not know how to make things look like a hologram. The HUD looks more holographic because it's just a texture slapped on top, but they just don't know how to make these things look like a hologram, and thus they just look like liquid, which is weird. I mean, I don't hate it, but I don't love it either, you know? It's kind of like, I'm on the fence about it. Again, there's not enough gusto to some of the animations either. I do wish there was a bit more gusto there. But, again, not too bad. I like the sheen they got going on the metallic structures. And again, if we go to about by here... Yeah, the skybox is nice. Maybe it could be a bit more faint as the ring gets further away, so that it looks like it's getting further away and getting less visible. But aside from that, I don't hate the skybox. But this is one part that I do love, which again, you can't really say is unexpected, considering it's made in Unreal Engine 5. This is probably just the bare minimum you can ask for in a game made in Unreal Engine 5. And,
I've been able to pinpoint the main facility by
that's this.
cross-referencing Covenant survey data and religious texts. We were right.
Okay, I'm gonna get rid of the caption so that you can see it properly. But how do I do that? Yeah, what the fuck? No, just turn off captions.
I've been able to pinpoint the main facility by
look at that. Look at the
Covenant survey data and
look at the tracks that are being made in the sand.
It's on this island.
See, that's nice. If you're going to remaster a game and you have the ability to do that, then fair. That's something that at least I'm happy with them doing. Also, have they still got the metallic bit jutting out over here? No. Why not? I think they fixed that, but that wasn't a bug. That was on purpose. Why the fuck is that gone? I don't know.
Cliff wall. Silent
and let's be honest, this looks nice, but I don't know, there's something about the lighting and the colour grading that just makes it look, again, too Unreal Engine 5, not really like Halo Combat Evolved. But aside from that, I can't really say that I'm that surprised about the art style. There's certain things that I can nitpick, but if it wasn't for the fact that, personally, I'm talking about this, but for me, it's for nothing, because I'm probably not going to play this. And if I do, it'll probably be for only when it's like dirt cheap. Otherwise, I'm not going to bother buying it brand new, because it's just I'm not interested. I gave up on Halo basically. Well, I would say I gave up on Halo after Halo 4, because I didn't bother with Halo 5. But when Infinite came out, I gave it a shot. But that was the last chance saloon, you know? I've given up on Halo at this point. So the only way I'm giving this a go is if I play it over someone else's house, which is highly unlikely, or I buy it cheap one day because it's on sale on Steam or something, or even on the PS5, since it's playable there. But I don't know. I'm not going to be looking to get this game anytime soon, so me talking about this doesn't really make a difference. I just want to weigh in on the fact that I love how polarizing people are about games these days. It's either people who hate it are wrong for hating these things because they just want it to be like the old games were, and you're not going to get that. We want to move forward. But then you've also got those people who, of course, well, yeah, of course you would say that because you're not a die-hard fan. You never grew up playing these games. You don't really have a connection with them like the OG fans do. So therefore, of course, you're not going to see the gripes that they have. So you don't really have any reason to talk on this subject because this game wasn't really made for you. To some degree it was, because they are trying to bring new fans into playing these older games by re-releasing them with nicer visuals and quality of life fixes. But on the other hand, they also want to try and appease the OG fans that got it to where it was in the first place, that made this franchise what it was by playing these games and loving them so much. And when they can't really appease anyone without only really I get, yeah, some people will probably play this, granted, but again, other than the diehards who will play this by default just to shit on it, and the people who will probably play this out of curiosity and just end up wanting to see what the original's like and probably preferring that. The only other people who will play it are those maybe 1 or 2 people who are only playing it because, well, we don't actually like Halo. We just want to play this version and say, oh, this is better than the original because look at these visuals. Like, the original just looks so old by comparison. Like, new means better. But again, if that's your mindset, then you're kind of missing the point, and thus you shouldn't really be playing this to begin with. Clearly this isn't for you, and you just hate playing it. But otherwise, I don't know. For me, I can see both sides of the divide because I didn't grow up with this game. I mean, I can see both sides of the divide for the games that I mentioned earlier, the ones that I am more passionate about. But even then, like, I don't know, I would still say there's more reason to like this remake over liking the remaster of Combat Evolved, because as good as that was, the glaring issues do kind of hold it back a lot. But even then, I wouldn't say it's as bad as people say it is, but at the same time, it definitely, when it does get bad, it gets abysmal, and it doesn't really paint the game in the best light. It kind of makes the worst parts of the game look even worse, and to some degree, even the best parts of the game get absolutely butchered, which is why I would still say the original is better to play, but I guess it's worth at least playing the Anniversary Edition on the Master Chief Collection if it's all you can play. Whereas, I don't know, for this, I guess if you're new to the franchise, I'm on the fence about it. I'm not sure whether to say it's good or bad, because this is still too early on to say. A lot of this could change. But I would definitely say that me, personally, I'm probably not going to play it, because, again, I don't really care about Halo anymore. At least not current Halo, because I know they're not going to do anything new and interesting with it. They're just going to keep rehashing what we've already got. And even if this does look prettier, I still think if you want the more authentic experience of what you had in the OG version, you're not going to get that in a remake or a remaster. Just play the original. It's not going to get any better than that. But as far as remakes go, I can see why people hate this, but I also don't see this as being as bad. There are some things that I would definitely want to change, but overall, I'd be willing to settle for this if I had no choice. But when it comes to things like the Arkham remasters and the Assassin's Creed remasters, the only one that I'm just about willing to entertain is Assassin's Creed 3 remaster, and that's only because it comes with Assassin's Creed Liberty, and I don't really care that much about Assassin's Creed 3, so I don't really care which version of the game I play as long as it functions. Whereas when it comes to the games I'm actually passionate about, yeah, I'm sorry, but when it comes to the Arkham games, play the originals. When it comes to the Ezio games, play the originals. When it comes to Halo 2, yeah, the anniversary's worth it. When it comes to Halo 3, we only have one choice at the moment, but I don't know. We'll have to see where things go in the future, because we don't have an anniversary of that, sadly, and we're probably never going to get one. We'll just get a remake like this, if they even complete the trilogy this time. But we'll see. But when it comes to this, again, I'm on the fence about it, because there is stuff about it that I like. I don't think it looks terrible, like a lot of people seem to think. It just, yes, it does kind of sterilize what we had with the original. It doesn't really capture the atmosphere, and it does make it just look like a generic Unreal Engine 5 game, I have to say. That is the truth. A lot of the diehards will hate me for saying this, but this is closer to to the best you can expect from a remake of Halo Combat Evolved than anything else. I mean, we still have yet to see how they handle 343 Guilty Spark, which is the real test, because that was that was the straw that broke the camel's back in the Anniversary Edition. It might be the same here, but I don't know. If that looks better in this version, genuinely captures the atmosphere of the original, but with modern visuals, then maybe I'd be willing to give this a go. But until then, I don't know. But after this, I'm not impressed. I'm kind of impressed, but I'm not impressed enough to care. Because it just looks like, yes, it looks shinier, it looks nicer, but I've already got Combat Evolved, and I don't really care that much about visuals, so I'll take it or leave it, you know? Although there are definitely things I would change. Glaring things. Overall, I'd be willing to overlook them if the overall product is good. But we'll have to see. I definitely prefer this over the Anniversary, though. But I also agree with people on the fact that if you want an original, if you want to see them make a game that captures the original vibe, then this ain't it. But this is where I disagree, because I don't think you'd be able to capture the original vibe while going for hyper-realistic visuals like this. I'm sorry, you won't. Unless you hyper-stylize it, you'd be better off going for something more comic-y, because that's gonna better give you a sort of remastered look of the original with more modern visuals, I suppose, while keeping the aesthetic and overall feel of the original intact. Otherwise, trying to make it look hyper-real, you're just not going to be able to do that with the original Halo art style without it looking like shit. I'm sorry, but it's the truth. I know a lot of OG Halo fans are going to hate on me for saying that, but I just don't think that art style would translate that well into hyper-realism. Not to say that you can't have some of the physics that's going on here in a game like that. I mean, you could still go into full stylization and have tracks in the sand, have the water physics be hyper-realistic, and have the foliage work. Like, you could still do that, and that probably would be better than this, definitely. But I don't know. Especially since Halo and most games, sadly, these days seem to be wanting to go towards hyper-realism, I don't think you're going to be able to get that while hammering home the original look of Halo's art style without it looking like, I don't know. I mean, I guess if the vibe you're going for is making it look like a low-budget sci-fi TV series from the 60s, then maybe. But that's the best you're going to get if you're going for hyper-realism with the art style and overall vibe that you got with the original. And even then, I would say it still works better with the original art style that we had back then. I'm sorry, but that's just my stance on this. That's also probably my lack of bias due to the fact that it's not my favourite game in the series, and I'm not that much in love with this game as, say, the OG fans are. But as I said, I've always preferred Halo 2, 3, and Reach, but that's just me. Again, I'm not saying that they're wrong for having those takes. I mean, if you love this game, you have every right to feel outraged. Just like for those who actually like this, have every right to like this, because I'd say it's subjective. I just think the biggest problem is the fact that this is a very telling sign that 343 or Halo Studios are not willing to actually move on and do anything interesting. They would much rather just rehash and give us continually reinvent the wheel instead of trying to actually, I don't know, push the franchise further or do something new and interesting when there's so much more they could be doing. So I'm sorry, but the biggest flaw here isn't whether this is good or bad. Again, you are valid to think either way. I'm kind of on the fence about it. But the takeaway from this is that the fact that they're doing this in the first place is kind of a damning sign. And it kind of shows how out of ideas they are, that they kind of almost feel the need to hold on to nostalgia for everything it's worth, because that's all they have at this point. And that is just sad. I'm sorry, but it's just sad. I'm sorry, but maybe the truth is we shouldn't be getting more Halo. Maybe the truth is the franchise should have ended a long time ago. Maybe people were right to say that when Bungie handed the franchise over after Reach, instead of handing it over, that should have just been it. Reach should have been the last Halo game. Because, in my opinion, that was the pinnacle of Halo. It hasn't gotten better, and I'm sorry, but it probably won't. That's just what I believe. And as I said, you are entitled to your opinion. I don't even think those people who are saying that they want this to just be a basic clone of the original but with newer visuals, nicer visuals, I suppose, I don't even think they're wrong to say that, even if I believe that would be impossible. I can still see why they want that, and I still think they're valid for wanting that, because there is a charm to the original that it's just sorely missing in modern games, and I think most of that is just down to the sterilization of this. But again, I can't say that wasn't to be expected, considering this is an Unreal Engine game, and I can't be the only one to see that Unreal Engine games generally do have a very samey design language. They kind of all look similar. They all look sterile. They all look hyper-real for the sake of fidelity, and they lose that character that differentiates each game from the other. So as a result, I'm never enthusiastic when a new game gets brought out on Unreal Engine 5. In fact, it's very surprising when a game comes out on Unreal Engine 5 and it's actually good, because most games that come out on Unreal Engine 5 are just disappointing. So that's the takeaway from this. The biggest problem is just the fact that they're doing this in the first place instead of, I don't know, giving us something new and interesting, and it just shows that they don't really know what to do with the franchise, and that's kind of apparent at this point. So, I don't know, I just thought, bit of a ranty one, but I thought I had to at least weigh in on this argument. Even if my argument is kind of middle of the road, kind of playing it safe, that's just because, again, I don't feel as strongly about this game as other people do, but even if I did, personally, I can see why they're stripping away the art style to make it look modern, because personally, I don't think the art style they had going on there would look good with a modern spin, unless they stylized it more. But that's all the more reason why we should cherish the original and stop asking for them to continuously do stuff like this when this just isn't fixing the problem. The problem is we have a severe lack of content, and Halo probably might as well be dead at this point. So basically, I guess what I'm trying to say is there are many different fans of this series, and the problem is with having different generations of fans, people who jumped on at different points, they're all going to have a different vision for how that first game should look. Now, I'm not saying that one group of fans is more valid than the other, although in a way I would say really, if you think about it, the people who played the original game should have more of a say, considering the fact that that's the game that launched the franchise into the stratosphere, and if it wasn't for them, the franchise wouldn't be here today. But otherwise, I guess it's more a fact of they are 100% valid in wanting something that best represents what Halo was back then and what they were trying to go for, instead of something that paves over that to create this shinier looking version of the game. So I can't say that they're wrong for that, and at the same time I can see why some people disagree with that, but a lot of those people, you never played the original game, you don't really have a say on this. But at the same time, I also partially agree with those people as well, because I am one of those people who never grew up with Combat Evolved, so because of that, I would actually prefer if the games did have more of a unified vision, instead of each game looking like the art style changes from one game to the next. I would have actually preferred if it had a more unified vision. But at the same time, I still like the different evolutions between the games, and I still want each game to stand out on their own. So for me, if they could find a balance between uniformity and allowing each game to stand out, that would be great. Like, for instance, I do want the installations on this ring to look less shiny and more grimy like they do in the original. And I do want the art direction to be more stylized rather than realism, simply because I think stylization is the way to go for such a stylized vision of a game, because that's what this game was. This game was stylized. Not just because hardware dictated it. That's one of the many reasons why they had to go for a stylized vision in order to make the game work. But at the same time, I think the art style evolved the actual... It's not just it evolved through the process of making the game, it also evolved the game itself. And that's why the game ended up being called Combat Evolved, because clearly the vision evolved throughout the course of development, and the art style became more than just a compromise. They didn't design the game to look like that just because of hardware limitations. That was one factor, but the biggest factor was, in order to get that vision that they had to really stand out and be something special, they had to go all in on stylization and making this a unique take on a world, and they've really nailed that in that first game. You're not going to get that in a remake unless you either try to go more down the realm of stylization than realistic visuals. Like, you could still balance between realism and stylization. You don't necessarily have to stylize like Borderlands did, or Telltale. You can still have a more realistic idea. But it's not going to be as realistic as what they're giving us here. Now, if what you want is realism, because that's what 343 seems to want, or Halo Studios, then you're not going to get that, because that kind of defeats the purpose of the original art style and goal of what they were making back then. And as I said, personally, as in a perfect world, it's either we'd have one that balances things perfectly, or we'd have two games. One that is more of a love letter to the original, that takes the original ideas and design concepts and tries to make that more modern while not compromising on anything, and then another game that has a more uniform design to go into the other games, so that those people who want the series to feel more cohesive and don't care if slight elements of Combat Evolved's initial identity is lost can still have that too. But again, really, the best idea would be to try and make a balance between the two, something that still doesn't compromise on the design ideas of the original, but at the same time, it would have to be something that still manages to carry through a design language that would still fit the other two games, even as it evolves, and doesn't feel completely different in each installment. Just feels like a new iteration on that same design. But the main problem I have is I don't think Halo Studios is the company who's capable of doing that. I don't care whether they're the ones heading the franchise now, and I'm not even calling for Bungie to come back, because I know for a fact the Bungie we have in this day and age, the Destiny Bungie, is not the Bungie we had back then. I don't think they would be capable of making their masterpiece an even bigger masterpiece. They've already done their part for that series. There's no more that they can possibly do. They left at the perfect time. And I kind of wish that Xbox and Halo Studios, or 343, I kind of wish that they'd also come to that consensus, because at this stage, if they want to expand upon the universe, there are other ways of doing it than just retreading Chief's story again and again and again, or just bringing back the same games we've played. And at least if you're going to remake the games, at least complete the trilogy that you already started remaking with the anniversary games. But no, instead, scrap that idea onto the next harebrained scheme of completely defacing the franchise under the guise of improving it, when there's nothing that they can possibly do to improve it. I just don't see that being a thing, especially if you're working in Unreal Engine 5, because stylization in Unreal Engine 5 is a very difficult thing to achieve. It's mostly made for realism, and even then it doesn't function 100% right. But if you're just going for realism, perfect engine for that. It's not good for stylization, especially if you want to blend realism and stylization. One game I think that did that really well was Red Dead Redemption, but I don't see many, if any, Unreal Engine 5 games reaching that level of detail. I just don't see it. And again, would you even want that for Halo? Or would it feel out of place for a franchise that feels right at home in a comic? Let's be honest here. That's just my take. But either way, that's going to be it for this video. Thanks for watching this, whoever decides to, and I hope you enjoyed it, regardless of what you think. I hope I didn't enrage too many people. Again, I'm not trying to say that the community are wrong for thinking what they think, and I'm not trying to say that all those people who are saying that the community is toxic, well, technically they're wrong, because, yeah, I do kind of stand on the idea that, well, they are entitled to that opinion, because they actually played the games. For you to be saying that these people are just shitting on a game, on the company, for making the game look modern instead of modernising what was already there, well, that just shows, to me at least, that you never played the original. Because I may not have played it when it came out, but I at least played it, and I at least know why fans want it to remain somewhat intact. Because there's an aura to the original, a certain design language, a feel that you don't get in modern games, that is just a moment in time that would be nice to have again. Especially if we're gonna rehash this game for the second time. But I don't see it happening personally, but even if it were to, I'm not sure how it would work, or even if it would, but I definitely think that people are entitled to have the opinion of wanting that when it comes to a game so beloved that defined an entire era. And for people to say that those people are just being toxic and hating on the company, well, you clearly never played a Halo game, or if you did, you clearly haven't played enough of them to know why people are hating on the company, because the company have done this before and they will continue to do this. 343 or Halo Studios, or whatever you want to call them, doesn't make a difference. They never should have had Halo, and I don't think they're ever going to be able to perfect Halo. Halo was at its peak under Bungie. Bungie left it at the height of the franchise. That's where it should have stayed. And at the end of the day, people, like, you could say they're just a toxic fandom, but I say it's the same with fans of Assassin's Creed who, like me, have gotten bored of it and have decided to just stand against everything that Ubisoft brings out. Because Assassin's Creed is arse now. I'm sorry, but it's never going to be, like, I don't know why people still have hope for the future of Assassin's Creed. It is a dead franchise. Ubisoft need to just stop. Maybe give us a new Watch Dogs game for a change. Because I thought Watch Dogs would have been a cool way to take over from Assassin's Creed when they're finally done milking it. But they're never going to be done milking Assassin's Creed. In fact, they ruined Watch Dogs with Legion, and since then haven't even touched the IP. While they're constantly bringing out Assassin's Creed games that I don't think anyone asked for. And I'm sorry, but even the ones that we did ask for, it's too little too late. Yes, we finally got the Japan game we wanted, but it's too late. This is not the era we would have wanted that game. We would have wanted that game in either the Ezio era or the Unity era. Now we're in an era where the gameplay is so far removed from what the core of Assassin's Creed is, that this doesn't feel like Assassin's Creed. And I could do a whole other video just talking about that one, so I'm not going to go into it here, but it's just like, it lacks vision, and it just makes the game feel like it's a telltale sign that they've clearly just lost the plot. They don't know what they're doing. The franchise should have ended years ago, and they just shouldn't be continuing with it. And I think Bungie fans have every right to feel the exact same way about this franchise, because this franchise, I'm sorry, they keep trying to give us hope, and to some cases, in small doses, it works, but it never lives up to the hope, and we're always left thinking, why? And I don't like that. So, again, I just feel like, and again, what's with these models for the guns that look like they're straight out of Halo Infinite? Like, I like the Halo Infinite models, but I don't know, I just feel like it's out of place here. Again, this is another thing where I hope this is just a placeholder for more, like, bespoke models that they're going to be using when the game finally releases, because, as other people have said, and I will second them on this, just using Halo Infinite models doesn't really cut it when you're remaking basically the bedrock of the franchise. But again, I just don't see it making a difference either way. I don't think remaking the bedrock of the franchise is going to give us what we want, because sadly what we want already exists. So, I don't know. But either way, if you have anything else to say about that, that's what the comments are there for. But yeah, anyway, I'm just going to let this play out so that we can see the interior. I do think the illumination is not bad, although it could be, I don't know, maybe a bit less dim, but at least it's not too bright, but I don't know. Oh, what the fuck? You don't even have the... No, that is bad. You don't even have the window in the door. I know that was just there to show you, but I had a fun little thing with the original, that where that window in the door isn't actually a window. I discovered a while back when I first played the anniversary version of the game, that the window is actually a hole, and you can throw a grenade through it and kill the elite on the other side. He'll still come out of it in the cutscene when you open it, but when you go there, he's dead. So, that was a ghost. But, like, the little slit that's there for you to see him is actually a hole, and if you aim it just right, the grenade can go in there. So a friend of mine that I played it with recently was surprised that you can do that, and thought, I never even knew you could do that. And he's played the game before, especially his brother, who's played it a few times. But this is something that ever since I discovered it, which was pretty much my first proper playthrough, that I discovered that hole out of sheer boredom and curiosity. That's something I do every single time I play this mission. And you can't do that here because the window isn't there. What the fuck? No, that's just sad. Come on. Why the fuck did they plug up the hole like that?
I underestimated the Covenant's understanding of Halo's
But anyway, that's where I'm going to leave it for now, though. That's enough for this video. Again, comment section's there if you have anything you want to say. Everyone's entitled to their opinion here, but I do think that needs to be reiterated, because, again, people in this day and age are so divided on these things. It's like, it's either you're wrong or you're right. There's no middle ground. But either way, I'd like to see your discussions on that. But, yeah. I hope you enjoyed this video regardless of the rant and my own opinions. Again, I'm not trying to rage bait people. This is just what I believe. Again, I could be a bit biased having never grown up with these games. But either way, if you enjoyed the video, remember to leave a like. I hope you enjoyed the video. But you can leave a dislike if you didn't. I'm totally okay with that. But until next time, remember to subscribe for more. I mostly do gameplay shit. And again, at some point, if I can, I will be releasing Let's Play of the anniversary edition of this with a friend of mine. So I hope that you're interested in that. But either way, until we meet again, that'll be it for now.
Get this door open.
Take care, stay out of men, see you in the future. Bye, everyone.
Go ahead, Cortana.
Have a good discussion, and let's hope that this gets better rather than worse. And even if it doesn't, well, I don't know. I guess the best thing we can do is just, if you don't like this, just go back and play the original, because the original it's good, you know, like, can't fault it. In fact, I might just go back and play the original again at some point. I still think if you want that original energy, you're gonna get that from that a lot more than you're gonna get from here. So yeah, just give the original some love.
Let's move down the beach.
See you in the future, peeps.
Keep an eye out for any
Bye-bye.
unusual structures.